A millionaire hired a caregiver for his vegetative son, then broke down when he learned the truth. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the top floor of the luxurious penthouse overlooking Central Park. Michael Langston, a self-made tech millionaire, stepped out with his phone pressed to his ear, rattling off a list of appointments to his assistant. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed the weight he carried, a burden he rarely spoke about. Beyond the glamour of his fortune and the admiration of Forbes covers was a heartbreak money couldn't mend. His 18-year-old son, Daniel, had been in a vegetative state for nearly 3 years following a tragic car accident. The doctors had given up. Therapists came and went. Nurses treated his son like a task, efficient, sterile, cold. Michael had nearly given up himself, until, out of desperation more than hope, he placed one final ad for a full-time caregiver. The woman who answered it wasn't impressive on paper. No degree. No certifications. Just a short note, "I don't heal with medicine, I heal with heart." Her name was Grace. She was in her mid-30s, modestly dressed, with kind eyes and a presence that felt oddly warm, like she didn't come to work for the money, but because something deeper pulled her there. Michael was skeptical. But something about her made him say yes. From the first day, Grace treated Daniel like he was listening. She read to him, sang to him, whispered to him as if he were simply sleeping. She brought music into the room, soft jazz, classical piano, even upbeat pop on certain mornings. She massaged his hands gently, told him stories, prayed beside his bed. Where others saw a shell, she saw a soul still in there, waiting. Michael watched from the hallway in silence most days. Part of him felt it was all pointless. But another part, buried under years of pain, began to hope again. One morning, Michael overheard her whisper to Daniel, "I know you're tired, but I believe in you. If you hear me, just blink. One day, I believe you will." And then it happened. Weeks later, a nurse came running. "Mr. Langston." "Daniel," he blinked. At first, he dismissed it. Reflex, maybe. But then he saw it with his own eyes. Grace leaned over, her hand gently resting on Daniel's. "If you hear me," she whispered again, "blink once." Daniel's eyelids trembled, then shut and opened. Michael's knees buckled. He rushed to his son's bedside. "Daniel," he cried, cupping his face. "If you know who I am, blink twice." The room froze. One blink. Then another. Tears poured from Michael's eyes, falling onto Daniel's pale cheeks. "He's in there," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Oh my God, he's in there." Over the next few weeks, small miracles followed. A finger twitch. A slight head turn. A low moan that sounded like a syllable. The doctors were baffled. "It's as if he's been trying to come back for months," one said. "This is unprecedented." Michael pulled Grace aside. "What did you do? How is this possible?" "I just believed he wasn't gone," she said simply. "I treated him like a person, not a patient." He was stunned. "Why? Why would you care so much about a stranger?" Her eyes lowered. For a moment, she was quiet. Then she said, "Because I once had a son, too." The words hit Michael like a freight train. She'd never spoken of family before. Grace continued, "He was 6. His name was Elijah. He was born with a rare condition, fragile bones, fragile organs. They said he wouldn't live past 5. But he made it to 6. I stayed by his side every day, holding him, talking to him, loving him until the end. I promised him I would keep loving others the way I loved him. That I'd never let anyone feel forgotten." Michael couldn't speak. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. "I lost Elijah," she said softly. "But when I look at Daniel, I feel like I was meant to be here." Days turned into weeks. Daniel's recovery remained slow, but real. His eyes followed movement. He could groan in response. Once, when Grace sang an old lullaby, a tear slid from the corner of his eye. Michael began to sit with him more. He brought in old photos, sports jerseys, even Daniel's childhood dog, now gray and stiff, but still loyal. The mansion, once echoing with silence, began to feel like a home again. Then came the truth that broke everything wide open. One late evening, Michael was going through paperwork in his study. He came across Grace's original application, the handwritten note. Something about it felt off. It wasn't her handwriting. Curious, he did some digging. He called the agency. They had no record of her applying through them. In fact, they had no file on her at all. A sick panic rose in his chest. Who was this woman? He searched her name. Found nothing. He checked references, none were real. With trembling hands, he pulled up the security log from the front desk. The day she arrived, she hadn't signed in. It was as if she had just shown up. The next morning, he confronted her gently. Grace, I need you to be honest with me. Who are you really? She looked up, calm but resolute. I'm someone who lost everything. And when I saw your son's story in a news article last year, I felt something call me. I knew I had to come. I knew I could help. You lied to me. I didn't lie, she said. I just didn't tell you everything. I didn't think you'd believe me if I said I came out of faith, not credentials. Michael stared at her, his emotions tangled. Why would you do all this? For a stranger? Grace smiled, and her eyes glistened. Because kindness is how I keep my son's spirit alive. Michael broke down. In a world obsessed with success, resumes, and results, he had forgotten what real humanity looked like. Grace didn't need money. She didn't want recognition. She had only love to give, and that made her more powerful than any doctor he'd ever paid. I want you to stay, he said through tears. Not just as Daniel's caregiver, but as part of our family. Months passed. Daniel continued to improve, inch by inch. He could now whisper a few words. On his birthday, he rasped out, "Thank you. Ace." She wept into his hand. And that fall, in a sunlit backyard ceremony surrounded by yellow leaves, Michael dedicated a small children's foundation in Grace's son's name, the Elijah Hope Foundation, offering in-home emotional support for families with terminally ill kids. Grace became its director. She never asked for $1. But she changed a millionaire's heart. In the end, it wasn't money, medicine, or machines that brought Daniel back. It was the steady hand of a woman who believed when no one else did. Sometimes, the most powerful miracles aren't the ones that shake the earth, but the ones that quietly heal the human heart. Moral: kindness doesn't always wear a name tag. Sometimes, it walks in quietly, sits beside your pain, and changes everything without ever asking for thanks. Would you like image prompts, thumbnail idea, or YouTube title /hashtags for this story as well?